Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving into something pretty interesting. Apple and their race to, catch up in the AI game, I guess you could say. We've got a really cool report, actually, from a Korean tech news site, and it really kind of digs into what's going on with Siri and where Apple might be headed, with all this AI stuff.
Yeah, it's juicy.
Yeah.
This report, it claims that Apple's vision for like a truly advanced Siri, something they're calling LLM Siri,
Right.
might not actually it might not come out until 2027.
2027.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like forever, especially in the tech world. Things move so fast.
Yeah.
So what makes this delay such a big deal? Like, why is that such a major thing?
Well, think about it this way. By 2027, like AI assistants from other companies could be so advanced that they practically run your life, Like imagine an assistant that not only understands your commands, but also anticipates your needs, like learns your preferences, helps you navigate everything. Like Apple risks becoming irrelevant if Siri can't keep up, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So the stakes are pretty high.
Yeah.
And speaking of competition, the report specifically mentions Amazon's, have you heard of this? Alexa Plus.
Oh yeah.
As like a potential threat. And it sounds like it can answer complex questions and it can control smart home devices, which is, something Apple is aiming for with Siri.
Right. Yeah. And to compete with features like that, the report suggests that Apple might need to totally overhaul Siri's underlying architecture.
Really?
Yeah, and that's not a simple software update.
Yeah.
It's like rebuilding a house from the foundation up.
Wow.
And it gets even trickier because, Apple has been struggling to get even basic AI features working smoothly across all their devices,
You're talking about Apple Intelligence.
Right, exactly.
What exactly is that?
Yeah, good question. So Apple Intelligence is basically like the umbrella term for all the AI-powered features that you see on Apple devices.
Yeah.
So think like predictive text, photo recognition, those sorts of things.
Right, okay.
And even those features haven't been as seamless as they could be.
So if they're having trouble with the basics, how are they going to pull off this major Siri revamp? Especially because the report mentions they're even having trouble getting the hardware they need for this, right?
Exactly. It seems like other companies, other big tech giants have already kind of snatched up a lot of the resources that are needed for AI development. So Apple's kind of playing catch up in that sense. They're even building a new server factory in Texas, actually, to try to close that gap.
Wow. So it sounds like they're facing some serious hurdles here.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the average Siri user out there in the meantime?
Well, realistically, Siri might lag behind its competitors for a while, at least in terms of capabilities and responsiveness. So that might mean slower response times, limited functionality, things like that.
Yeah.
So as a Siri user, it might be worth considering how important those factors are to you.
Okay. Now here's something I found really interesting in the report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The report says that Apple actually integrated ChatGPT into Siri.
Oh, really?
But get this. It's barely functional and mostly used as a backup.
Oh, wow.
Why would they do that? I mean, that seems so strange.
That's a great question. Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but it could point to Apple's resistance to relying on third-party solutions. They seem pretty determined to develop their own technology, even if it means playing catch-up for a while. They're probably hoping that this LLM Siri, powered by a large language model, will be the game changer they need.
Okay, so what is an LLM exactly? I know it stands for large language model, but how is that different from how Siri works, right now?
Yeah. So essentially, an LLM allows for much more natural and sophisticated interactions. So LLM Siri could understand and respond to you in a much more human-like way, almost like you're having a conversation with a very knowledgeable friend. Yeah.
That definitely sounds like a step up.
Right.
But if they're struggling with hardware and taking their time with development, are they underestimating how quickly the AI landscape is changing?
That's a key point.
Yeah.
The report highlights a quote actually from an Apple executive who claims that this will not significantly affect iPhone sales.
Yeah.
They seem to be banking on their existing strengths, like their integration of hardware, software, and services, their chips, their user interface.
Right.
But is that enough?
Yeah, that's what we need to unpack, I think. The article raises some serious doubts about whether Apple's current approach is really enough to stay competitive in a world where AI is it's becoming so central to how we interact with technology.
Right? Absolutely. It's a big question. And we'll delve into the potential consequences of Apple's strategy in the next part of our deep dive.
It's interesting to think about Apple's perspective on all this. I mean, they've built this whole empire, right, on this really tightly controlled ecosystem.
Yeah.
And relying on external AI solutions like ChatGPT, might feel like they're giving up some of that control that they like so much.
Yeah, that's a good point. Control has always been a really key part of their whole approach.
Right.
They want to own that entire user experience from the hardware to the software.
Right.
But the question is that sustainable in this new age of AI?
That's the thing. The report seems to suggest that they might be underestimating just how transformative AI is going to be. It argues that AI isn't just another feature that you add to a device.
Right.
It's a fundamental shift in how we use technology, how we interact with it.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we're already seeing how AI is changing the way we search for information, how we create content, even how we shop.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more integrated into our daily lives.
Yeah, and I can see that. Imagine a world where your AI assistant doesn't just, understand your commands.
Right.
But it anticipates your needs and helps you navigate, life in a truly personalized way.
Exactly. And as these AI models become more sophisticated, I mean, that's the future we're moving towards. And the challenge for Apple is they've historically excelled at hardware and software integration.
Right.
But AI requires a different kind of expertise.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, AI is all about data. It's about algorithms. It's about a deep understanding of how humans interact with machines. And the report suggests that these are areas where Apple might be playing a little bit of catch up.
Especially when it comes to securing that hardware that they need and attracting top AI talent. I mean, they are building that server farm in Texas.
Right.
But it seems like they're still behind.
Yeah, it's a highly competitive landscape, and catching up, it's not going to be easy.
Right.
The report suggests that Apple may need to make some strategic moves.
Yeah.
Maybe through acquisitions, partnerships, or even a significant investment in internal research and development.
So what are they actually doing? I mean, does the report shed any light on Apple's specific strategy?
Unfortunately, apart from mentioning that new server factory in Texas, the report's pretty light on the specifics. It does highlight that Apple seems to be betting on its existing strengths. Things like their loyal customer base, their reputation for privacy and security.
But is that enough? I mean, privacy and security are important, but what if Siri simply can't keep up with the functionality that its competitors are offering?
Right, that's the crux of the issue.
Yeah.
The report raises the possibility that Apple's current strategy could backfire if they fail to deliver a compelling AI experience to their users.
So let's talk worst case scenario here.
Okay.
What happens if Apple really does fall behind in this AI race? What does that world look like?
Well, the report doesn't sugarcoat it. They suggest that in a world where AI is the dominant force in technology, Apple could become irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty dramatic statement. But is that really a possibility? I mean, they're a giant in the tech world.
True. They have a huge market share. They've got a devoted following. But the history of technology is full of companies that once seemed invincible.
Right.
But failed to adapt to changing tides.
Yeah.
Think about companies like Nokia or BlackBerry.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a sobering thought. I guess the real question is whether Apple can successfully navigate this transition to an AI-driven future.
Exactly. And the report argues that the next few years will be crucial for them. They need to show that they can compete in this AI space, not just with hardware and software, but with innovative AI experiences that genuinely enhance people's lives.
So what can we expect to see from them in the near future? I mean, will they try to accelerate the development of this LLM Siri?
Yeah.
Or will they just double down on their on their existing strategy.
That's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll examine the potential paths Apple could take and the challenges they might face along the way.
Okay, so we've talked about all the challenges that Apple is facing in this AI race. What's their next move? What does the report say they could do to try to catch up here?
Well, the report kind of outlines a couple of interesting paths,
Okay.
One option is that they could go on like a shopping spree, acquire some promising AI startups to kind of boost their in-house expertise. I mean, we've seen them do this before. Remember when they acquired Siri back in 2010?
Right. Yeah. Apple definitely has a history of grabbing these smaller companies with interesting technology.
Exactly.
But the report also mentioned another possibility, right? Something about partnerships.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they suggest that Apple could team up with like a major player in the AI field, someone like Google or even Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
And this would allow them to, leverage these existing AI capabilities and potentially like really fast track the development of a truly competitive Siri.
So buy or partner. I mean, it sounds like those are the two main options on the table. What are the downsides to each approach?
Yeah, well, I mean, acquisitions, they can be expensive.
Yeah.
And integrating a new company into Apple's, notoriously closed ecosystem can be really tricky.
Right.
Partnerships, on the other hand, they mean sharing control and potentially like diluting Apple's brand identity. So it's a tough, classic dilemma for a company like Apple.
Yeah, it sounds like a really tough choice. Does the report hint at which way they might be leaning?
It does seem like Apple might be favoring a more independent approach.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The report points to their ongoing efforts to build their own AI chips and develop their own large language models, and this suggests that they might be hesitant to rely too heavily on external partners.
But going it alone is a pretty risky strategy, especially considering how far behind they seem to be at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the chances that they can actually pull this off? Can they really develop a Siri that's as good as or even better than what we're seeing from their competitors?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an uphill battle. The report does acknowledge Apple's strengths.
Yeah.
They've got incredible brand loyalty, vast financial resources, and a knack for creating sleek and user-friendly products.
Mm-hmm.
But it also emphasizes the magnitude of the challenge they're facing in this AI arena.
So where does that leave Siri users like you and me?
Right.
Should we be worried? Should we just, jump ship and switch to Alexa or Google Assistant?
I wouldn't panic just yet. Apple has a history of surprising us.
True.
They've proven time and again that they can innovate, they can adapt.
Mm-hmm.
But it's clear that they need to step up their game in AI. If they can't deliver a Siri that is truly intelligent, responsive, and seamlessly integrated into our lives,
Mm-hmm.
They risk becoming a footnote in the history of technology.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought. This report really leaves us with a lot to think about. I mean, will Apple rise to the challenge? Will they reclaim their position as a leader in innovation, or will they fall victim to complacency and watch as the future of technology just unfolds without them?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? Yeah. And I think that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. We're watching a tech giant at a crossroads. And decisions that they make in the next few years, they're going to have a huge impact on the future of AI and how all of us interact with technology. And it's a reminder, that even the most powerful companies, they aren't immune to disruption.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into Apple's AI future. Thank you all so much for joining us, and be sure to check back for more fascinating explorations of the ever-changing world of technology.